Hey, what's up, Street Talks? It's Eric Kim from the Eric Kim Street Photography blog. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about today is the notion that there's no such thing as good or bad photographs. So this is my rationale. You cannot quantify a photograph as being objectively good or bad. It all comes down to personal preference. So for example, let's say, you're a white American and you go to like some village in Africa, where the people have the long necks. And you take a photo of that, you share it with your friends back home. They're like, wow, it's so interesting, it's so exotic, such a good photograph, da-da-da. But you show the same photograph to people in the same village, they're gonna be like, what, that's just boring, that's kind of average, it's kind of not interesting. Also, perhaps similarly, as an American, if you go to Japan or Tokyo, you shoot all these street photographs of Tokyo, and it's like, whoa, the Japanese, they're like so weird, they have these like, vending machines for everything, and you show it back to your friends in America, they're like, whoa, your photos are so good, they're so interesting. And if you show it to a Japanese person, they're like, this is like everyday life, and it's not really a big a deal. And I think this is the problem that happens, is that a lot of photographers, we're always striving to make really good photographs, whatever that means. And the downside is, in striving too hard to make good photographs, we try to use the notion of a good photograph as something that other people judge our photos. So even for myself, I would always share my photos with other people. And I wanted people to say I was a good photographer and you had good photographs. And now I'm starting to realize it doesn't really matter whether your photos are good or not. It's whether you like the photograph or not. Because photos that are important to you and photos which bring you joy and delight are not necessarily going to bring other people joy and delight. So for example, photographing your loved ones, your friends, your family, your kids, these are actually probably the most valuable photographs you can shoot in your life. But if you show them to a stranger, they don't care. It's kind of like the idea that every parent thinks that their child is the most beautiful and the most perfect individual thing ever, but then it's just a kid. It's like not even that cute, right? So in terms of photography, what you're trying to do through your photography, and this is what I really encourage you to do as a photographer too, is that really spend more time to really think, how do I want to make photos on my own terms, according to my own table of values, and how can I express myself as a visual artist to the maximum in accordance to how I want to express myself. So for example, the biggest benefit I've learned from studying all these masters of photography and just studying art in general, there's really no right or wrong way. There's so infinite amount of ways. Like some photographers like to work on projects, some photographers like to shoot street photography, landscape, abstract, black and white, color, film, digital, phone, whatever. Some photographers like to work on single images. Some photographers like to combine their photography and words, do more like photo reportage or documentary style photography, or some photographers like to do, my friend Sean Lotman in Kyoto, he likes to write haiku poetry and pair it with his photographs. So I think the problem that I made was I spent so much time trying to discover the truth about photography, like if there is some sort of universal truth to good photography, studying other people. But I think I didn't spend enough time really studying my own photos and really digging into my own personal motives and why I was making photographs. And really the more I think about photography and the more experience I get, it really is, as a photographer, first and foremost, strive to make photos that you like, photos that bring you joy and delight, photos that you actually like looking at. Even nowadays, I've been spending more, I deleted my Instagram and I don't upload photos to social media, I upload them into my blog. But I don't have comments and I don't know how many views or page views I'm getting, whatever. So it really judges my sincerity, whether I really like the photos or not, whether I like to look at my own photographs. And something that I've been noticing recently is the photos of my own that I really like to look at generally tend to be kind of like black and white, like abstract photos. And then I started realizing, I really actually like abstract paintings too. So maybe this is a new direction for me. A lot of people often trying to find, your own style, your own voice in photography. And I think really the secret is allow yourself to evolve, allow yourself to be in flux. And just because you don't know what your style is doesn't mean you don't have a style. So I generally do think it's beneficial to know what your taste is, right? Like, you know, you want to go to dinner with friends, and then you got 5 of your friends, and they're like, oh, you know, what do you guys want to eat tonight? And then they're like, oh, you know, we're okay with anything. And I'm like, okay, let's go get like Korean barbecue. Oh, I just ate Korean barbecue last night. So, okay, you know, let's get Thai food. Oh, Thai food's like overpriced. So a lot of people like to complain without actually giving their own preferences. So I think it actually is important to know thyself, or know a little bit of self-wisdom, to know your own personal preferences, your own truths. So like, for example, at the moment, if you guys are curious, my friend Aaron sent me the Fujifilm XF10. It's a pretty cool camera. It's about pretty much the same size as the Ricoh GR2, and I've just been shooting black and white on it. And I've actually been experimenting with this thing called SR Plus mode, which is actually quite interesting. The basic idea is it's kind of like an intelligent automatic mode. So when I'm taking photos, and I usually have the flash on, it doesn't always do it, but sometimes the thing could track and it says, oh, it's a portrait, it's a photograph, whatever it may be. And if you take a look through the menu, let's see, I click the menu button here, and generally I shoot in, it's all just, you know, JPEG, and basic settings like the film simulation mode. Right now just shooting standard, which is the ProView preset, or even for black and white, I like this monochrome plus yellow filter preset. So if I'm trying to take photos of myself, it's just kind of a good way to keep things simple. And it's pretty comfortable in the hand. Let's see, can you see it? Yeah. It's pretty comfortable in the hand. It's got a pretty good design. It's only $500. Aaron hooked it up. And also, if you're curious about like what kind of strap to use, currently have the Aircam wrist strap Mark II, which is this little string guy which connects to the tab here, and the beautiful strap, also compatible with Ricoh GR2. Anyways, realize that as a photographer, when you're building your own personal style as a photographer too, don't worry so much about the equipment that you're using, in the sense that thinking that you must be defined by the equipment. Rather, it's more simple. Figure out what kind of photos you like to shoot, and then figure out the least cumbersome or the simplest tools to achieve that. So this is the biggest mistake I see a lot of photographers do, is that, oh, you know, they brand themselves up. Oh, I'm a Fuji photographer, or I'm a Leica photographer, or I'm a Nikon photographer, or I'm a Sony photographer. But it's like why would you say that? Like, it's a little bit silly. Like, and you know, a lot of people say this too. It's like, oh, you know, I'm a BMW driver, I'm a Mercedes driver. But it's like, why would you define yourself in terms of external corporations and brands? Rather be like, oh, you know, I'm a street photographer, or I'm a landscape photographer, or I'm a portrait photographer, or even better so, don't define your photography. Just say, you know, I like to take pictures, right? Or I like to shoot photos. Or you could even brand yourself. You say, I'm a photographer, or I'm a visual artist, or I'm a visual poet, or, you know, I'm just a curious person. I like to wander and make images. And even for myself, sometimes I like to think of myself as like a visual sociologist, is that I'm interested in society and the world, how people interact. And I study sociology in school, so for me, street photography is like applied sociology. I'm trying to analyze, dissect, critique, judge, understand people in society. And so for that kind of photography, like street photography, generally just a small, inconvenient, a camera that's not inconvenient, a small simple camera like a Ricoh GR2, the Fuji XF10 is very good too, or just even shooting with your phone is the simplest solution. Whereas if you're like my buddy Bill Brown in LA, you're shooting models and shooting fashion, you know, you probably want to shoot with like a Pentax 645Z digital medium format, because you have it, you know, tethered to external flashes and you got a big studio. So first and foremost, don't think about the equipment, think about what do you want to shoot, why do you like to shoot it, and what's the simplest possible camera or equipment for achieving that purpose. I don't even remember what I was talking about anyways, but just to kind of sum up some points. Remember, as a photographer, don't worry so much about being a good photographer or a bad photographer. Just have fun, right? Like if you're not having fun in photography, you're probably doing something wrong, or you're maybe doing it for the wrong reasons. I think the purpose of photography isn't to one day become a famous photographer and have trillions of fans and trillions of dollars in the bank. I think the goal is to constantly innovate, to constantly push your boundaries, to constantly push your limits, and essentially keep making photos until you die. I mean, it's my personal ambition to live to be 120 years old in excellent health, and hopefully I could maintain my deadlift until then. But besides that, I want to stay creative, to stay nimble. I want to stay childlike. I was in bed today and I was thinking about when I first started photography. I just had a little Canon SD 100 point and shoot camera. And that was probably the best time in my photographic life, where it was all about experimentation. It was so fun. And this is really before social media. So like, I really kind of did make photos for myself. And more so, I'm trying to truly gauge my own personal sincerity, whether I'm making photos for myself or whether I'm making photos to please others. I mean, ultimately, of course, we all still want to, if you share your photos with other people, you still kind of want to impress other people, or you want to please other people, or I think there is actually good value in sharing your photos with others. But still, first and foremost, it's the combination, it's the order which matters. First, make photos for yourself. Second, share them with other people, hoping they'll like it. But if they don't like it, don't be discouraged, because true innovators are ones who have a certain artistic vision in their mind, and they want to share that artistic vision with others, and they don't even really care whether people like it or not, as long as it affects them, as long as it impacts them, and as long as it creates an effect. So yeah, some basic ideas on being a more impactful photographer. Don't worry so much about your equipment, in the sense that first and foremost, think about what kind of photos you like to make and why. Then two, figure out what's the easiest equipment to make that reality. And yeah, photography, I think the more and more experience I get about photography, it's really kind of like post-processing photos and creating a certain aesthetic. To me, it's like painting. You're creating an aesthetic you like. Going out and shooting, exploring the world, it's a sense of adventure. Shooting street photos, taking photos of strangers, whatever, using flash, whatever it may be. It's really about building personal bravery and courage. And so really, photography is a great way to interact with reality, a great way to be an artist, a great way to exert your personal courage. Even talking with strangers in street photography is a fantastic thing you could do, because it gives you the opportunity to step outside your comfort zone and interact with other people, which is very difficult in today's world. And even being an entrepreneur is sharing your images on the internet, letting yourself be open to be critiqued or criticized. It's probably 90% of the game, building up that thicker skin. So yeah, photography enhances and improves our lives in everything, right? So really just ask yourself, am I making photos to get external approval from other people, or am I making photos to improve my life? Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Peace out.